So talking about the latest in the use of electronic tools, the ideal procurement organization must balance the desire to leverage purchasing power through complete ownership with the need to maintain flexibility of the individual business units. So just to give you a little flavor of what it actually means, there's always a tug of war between the end user department, which basically uses the product, and the procurement department. Procurement department wants to buy and to buy it properly, and then they want to go through the process. In a lot of cases, the end user says, well, you know what, I have a really good relationship with this truck delivery service, and I'm not interested in going through the procurement process. And in our federal government or provincial government or any government organizations, we require to go through the BPS guidelines. BPS guidelines tell you that you need to go periodically through the procurement process. So there is a tug of war based on that. So the balance have to be struck between the desires of the procurement department and the end user. And one thing procurement or business units should not do is to use laborious manual processes. So I've dedicated a lot of my time creating different processes within organizations, which normally start from what? The normal procurement process have to be based on what? On a good procurement policy. You create a policy that gives a foundation as an organization. If your organizations don't have a procurement policy, I would recommend the best thing to start with is to write a really good procurement policy that gives you a foundation. The foundation is done, then you start actually building processes based on the policy, right? So the policy could be as simple as all the requirements for $10,000 and below can be done by the end user. Anything over $10,000 have to be done by the procurement department. And anything which is $10,000 and above have to go through the proper procurement process, which requires either 3 quotes or public tendering in a sense of the public service, right? So how do you achieve the balance between within the organizations? The balance is achieved through the use of electronic tools currently available in the market, right? So I'm not going to actually go and tell you which tools are available. It's very easy to find. You go and you actually look for e-procurement tools. Google will give you a list. So then tools are divided into 3 groups, basically, if you look at that. And it's a sourcing tool, you have execution tool, and you have a contract management tool. So which basically sourcing means bid receiving is part of the sourcing. So sourcing, some people say sourcing is all about finding the right supplier for your job, right? I say that sourcing actually starts from the very beginning, such as requirement definition and defining the statement of work. So the procurement department actually is very much engaged in the definition of the requirement. Then they go into the sourcing requirement by thinking about, okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to post an RFP, RFQ, whatever it is. Then it goes into execution, which basically execution goes into posting the requirement, receiving the bids, evaluating the bids, and awarding the contract. And the last tool in the contract management is what? Is to manage the contract properly. 60% of your losses, or savings if you wish, are attributed to the last part. So if you take the entire cycle of the procurement, if you want to save money, if people always talk about saving money, so if you want to save money in the procurement world, you go out competitively, and the first 40% you can actually drop at the time between the proper SOW development and the receiving of bids. So you actually can get a reduction from $1 to 60 cents on a product, for example. But what happens later? It's very interesting. So everybody is happy. It's a $10 million organization product. And what happens with the product? So everybody forgets about the terms and conditions of the contract, and the supplier comes in, and what the supplier's aspirations are is to upsell after they sell. So what they do is they say, well, now we have a surcharge on fuel. Now we have some other charges which were unforeseen. Labor increase, all kind of stuff, right? So if you don't do that, electronic development of the tools and allowing you to monitor, manage on the contract manager side of it, not only you lose all of your savings, but you actually will increase your cost dramatically. So if you look at the entire spend budget, that's what you have to worry about. In the federal government, I must say, we used to have a very good process and good groups which were looking after contract management alone. And Jack already actually touched upon several items today, such as you must go to see your supplier. And I used to apply to different countries to see if that supplier actually can deliver the goods. You do assessment, you actually follow them, you have a quarterly meetings and all those kind of processes. Because contract management, which is a tool at the end of the goods service receive payment scorecard provisions, right? You have to really have a scorecard in order to actually manage. And the scorecard is a really interesting, simple tool, but it's a great tool.